All right, for round two, thank you all so much for joining us. I'll start us off with a question that's a bit of a hybrid of some of the things we've talked about, just so we can kind of um, make sure we touch on as many things as possible. It would be wonderful if each of you could share a bit about what kind of education you needed to get to your career, but also what sort of values you integrated into your career. And maybe just wrapping that up into sort of advice that you would have given yourself when you were starting out, that you've learned from this educational and value-centered experience you've had along the way. Um, and as our amazing speakers sort of give their insights on this, I'd love it if all of our attendees could think of any questions you may have, because this is really your space and your time to ask whatever is on your mind. But with that, I will pass it on to our speakers in whatever order you wish. Dominique, go for it.
Sure. I think the biggest thing that ironically getting older teaches you, and I had a big birthday in October, I turned 50, is that, you do have a lot of time. And when I was younger, I was so in a rush and thinking I couldn't make a mistake because I had to be on some track and I had to do everything perfectly or else I would get off track. And, I think Molly's question that we were speaking about in the last panel about sort of how do sometimes you just really don't know and you just gotta try, right? And so and to answer Elinka's specific question, I became a teacher, but I majored in art history. I didn't know that I was going to be a teacher when I was in college, but luckily I did get a good education. I was able, and I'm sort of minored in Latin American studies, so I was able to parlay that into several different teaching degrees or certifications in New York City. And for me, it was much more about teaching fulfilled a heart-centered goal that I had, that I wanted to help people. And the first thing that I tried, photojournalism, I was helping people too, but again, to Dr. Shante's point, I couldn't really feed myself all that well. And I don't come from a wealthy family and I needed to make my own money. And, I realized, yeah, having a regular paycheck is really nice. So you're able, sometimes you're able to fulfill multiple goals, even if you don't think that that's the right option for you at the time. Try it. You just never know. You could wind up loving it.
I'll just jump in and I'll try to combine multiple things because I know we don't have a ton of time, but so I had two kind of unrelated careers, and for book publishing, I think having some sort of background in writing or literature is helpful, though not essential, but it does help. And for law, one thing I mentioned in the last breakout room is that you can be a participant in legal spaces without a law degree, and you could be an activist, you can be an organizer, you could be in politics, you could be, I think Shalini, you mentioned a journalist who writes about law. So there are lots of ways. If you do want to be an actual lawyer, you do have to go to law school. It's 3 years, it's expensive. And, this ties into what Dominique was saying, and something we talked about in the last is figuring out where your passions are and also how you make a living. And you can sometimes combine those two together. Sometimes you can't. And I'm someone who, temporarily maybe ruined one of her passions in literature by making it her job, and then was able to rediscover love for that when I shifted careers and it was no longer my job and could just be a passion. So experimenting a little, finding out what's right for you. And I think giving yourself that flexibility and time. I mean, sometimes you're going to have to check certain boxes to do something. If you want to be a doctor, you probably have to have some science and pre-med background, but certainly to go to law school, you don't need to be pre-law. I mean, you could be anything and still go to law school. And some of my best law students at UT are people who have not had, majored in something completely unrelated to political science or government or the law. So I think just being aware of what you love, what makes you happy, and then also doing some research in advance and knowing what boxes you may need to check so that you can plan where you want to invest. But knowing you have time and flexibility and you can make mistakes and you can change your mind is something that I think is really valuable. And I also didn't always feel that and discovered that late in life.
So I just wanted to leave everyone with 2, 3 things that I really worked for me. And every year at the beginning of the year of school, and of course the pandemic just kind of popped us into something that we were not ready for. So we all decided, at the beginning of the year, just think, what is it that you want to really change? Chuck and cherish. These 3 words have always worked for me. And every year I definitely redo my vision board. If you don't have a vision board, I would really say do that. And something that I do is I always put myself at the center of the vision board, because I think I'm the energy. I'm driving the vision board. So definitely do that. It could be personal goals, it could be professional goals, it could be anything that you do. But put it out there, because if you cannot visualize it and you cannot see it, you're not going to be able to go and achieve it. And from my experience in Korea, let me tell you, it's really worked. So definitely do those things besides doing your research and which college and everything. I think even just a little bit of training in soft skills if you get a chance, because 2 candidates may have everything similar, but you will stand out with some of the soft skills that you may have when you kind of go in for an interview or whatever. So keep that with you. Yeah.
And I would also say take the advice of the airlines. They always say put on your mask first before you help someone else. And so remember to know how to support yourself as women, whoever you want to choose as a love interest or a partner. Make sure that you can support yourself first before you want to add in things like a family or, having a spouse or a partner, someone who can help you on this journey. That's been my biggest thing, is going after what I want to do for myself. And don't allow yourself to be put in a box and say, oh, I'm a woman, or, I'm a woman of color. And, I don't, there's certain spaces that I can't go into. I'm from a small town in Arkansas called Pine Bluff, and going to Harvard, I remember was so everyone was like, no, you can't go to Harvard, because I'm from the South, and so it's like, you can't go there. And then when I finally got there, I was like, oh, this is awesome. I'm glad I listened to myself and did what made me happy. It was always my dream to go to Harvard. I don't know why, maybe because it's Harvard, for goodness sakes. So, I just always wanted to go, and I went after all of my passions. I went after all those things I felt like I was good at. And it's not even just my passions. There are things that I had to recognize, like, hey, I'm good at writing. I'm good at speaking. I'm good at creating these relationships. I'm genuinely smart. And it's okay to pat yourself on the back. If you don't pump yourself up, who will? And I knew that I'm just smart and I can do a lot of things. And so I went after everything that life has for me. And when my life is over, I want people to look back and say, hey, she went after everything that she wanted to go after, and she did it well. And so, and that goes for education as well. If there's an opportunity, go for it.
Love that. These are all such incredible insights, and I know I'm so inspired I'm taking notes. I think I will quickly ask all participants to feel free to just put any questions that you have forward, whether it's in the chat or over the mic if you feel more comfortable, whatever works for you. And I think this is really your space to ask the questions that you've been dying to ask, whether they're directed to one particular person who has a career interest or path that you're aspiring towards, or just more broadly to everyone. But as you think of questions, in our form that we sent out asking everyone to register, we had a couple of pre-written questions, and we wanted to gauge interest in different topics. And overwhelmingly, we had so much interest in the following question. How do you navigate being a woman in your field? And do you have any advice for entering a male-dominated profession? And I'd also add for just creating those spaces that feel more inclusive and maybe helping lift up other women as well. I'd just love to hear any of your thoughts on that as our participants think of questions.
I want to kind of touch on that a little bit now. not in the field of education, because there's a big shift to it's really woman dominated, but I want to go into politics. So here, my incumbent has been in the position for 30 years, literally. 1992 is when he's been in the seat. He's been there a long time. There's lots of men that just dominate the politics here. And so I just really had to put on my political science hat and try to work that and understand how people think. And so I'm going to be just honest. I use my husband. He's a Marine, so I kind of have to, I recognize how people think. Sorry, my little daughter just woke up. So if you see a little person right here, she just walked down the hallway. I had to use my husband to kind of help me get into that field. I had to be smart about it. They saw that, I was a veteran. I've done everything that I wanted to do and more. But I was a veteran, I'm a licensed educator, and I had to pull my husband in and say, hey, my husband, 19 years, Marine Corps, and that kind of made other men feel, and this is not right to think that way, but this is how they think, and I had to do my research. And they were kind of like, oh, well, she has a strong husband, so maybe we can kind of bring him in, but they just don't know. I'm running my own show. He doesn't run me at all. But that's kind of how some of the men in my area, I'm in the South, I'm in the Bible Belt, and so they kind of, I had to know my people. I had to know like the field I was working into, the field I was going into, how their minds work, what are some things that they appreciate. And you asked something else about values too. And so the values that in my culture here in the South is, a solid family, stability. And so they see that I was able to navigate my career, my husband as well. We have 3 children. And so they see like, okay, she can handle herself. And so those were some value for us as family.
That's wonderful. And I definitely think the psychology of bias is also really interesting. And I think that's something that you have a really fascinating perspective on, given your career. But yes, Lisa.
I was just going to say a few things that have been common themes are this notion of, soft skills and understanding your audience and what the biases they may bring, their interests, how to speak to them. And it's something that I definitely have seen as a common thread, both when I was doing publicity and marketing in book publishing, and then also in the law, is thinking about what you have to sell. And sometimes I had a book to sell, sometimes I have a legal argument to sell or a client's interest to sell, but always think about on the other end, who's listening and what might appeal to them. And I think that, you don't want to sacrifice your own values or your personal integrity in order to be something that you are not. But I think that if you are just aware of your audience, that sometimes you can be your authentic self, and ideally you're your authentic self, but also position whatever it is you're selling, argument, commodity, person, in a way that lands successfully. And as I've had sort of the opposite of Shantae. So I'm a Northerner who's now in the South, and I have met a lot of resistance sometimes because I speak quickly and I'm a divorced single mom who doesn't fit all of those models. And so just maybe anticipating that there may be a little suspicion of me initially, and it doesn't mean I become someone who I don't, or I change the way I do it, but I'm just aware of it. And I think that's been helpful in navigating in a male industry. And there's no question that women get judged differently than men. It doesn't mean you can't succeed, but I think, again, being aware of those differences just helps you to navigate some difficult fields.
That's such a good point. And I think, yes, going into your fields with that awareness and that knowledge, and also just that understanding that, there will be discrimination, but I think one thing that I found really empowering is having such amazing mentors and just people to look up to who've gone through it and are willing to just go back, extend a hand and help you through. And I'm really grateful to you all for sharing those insights and really being those people for us today. We have about 3 more minutes. So if there are any final remarks that any of you would like to just bring forth to our attendees, or if any of you who are joining today would like to ask a question, now is definitely the time. Feel free to raise your hand. Oh, all right. Go ahead. Of course.
So I'd like to say something on the last question about navigating in a male-dominated profession. By default, I think we're teaching a learning I'm surrounded by more women. But honestly, I think the only thing constant is change, and we are the change makers. So just to give you a little example, when I used to visit schools earlier, I used to see physical education teachers were mainly male. And over time, I'm now seeing a change. And I said this earlier also, that are you an umbrella, which is a jack of all trades, or are you an archer? And that's one of the reasons, because I see so many women who've darted in as archers because they are yoga teachers, they do Pilates, they do Zumba, they do dance. Now, that's something that I don't see too much in the males that are at the school. So they came in with that USP, and they started doing different things. So I think look out for that. That's something that's unique, and you can easily walk into a very male dominated career. Yeah, it's just that thread of the same branch, I would say, just another branch to the main branch, but look at those mini branches, I think, and that's a great way to get into those careers. Yeah.
That is such wonderful advice. I just wrote it down. The only thing constant is change, and we are the change makers. And I think that's such a powerful sentiment to guide yourself by and to navigate those uncertain circumstances and stay true to yourself. I think we have time for one participant question, if there is any. Please do not feel afraid to put it in the chat, to raise your hand, whatever works for you. And if there's no question, if any of our speakers also have any final remarks they'd like to share, you're definitely welcome to as well.
I just want to encourage everybody to reach out, not only to all of us. I think we're all very willing. You have our contact information, but I think that you will find that particularly women who are, look for women who are doing what you think you might be interested in. And if you reach out and say, would you like to jump on Zoom? Or if they're local and say, could I come meet you for 15 minutes in your office? I think you'll be really surprised, not only that they're willing to do it, but that they want to do it, and you will make their day by asking. So don't think of this as something that is a sacrifice you're asking them to make. It's an opportunity for them. I think many women, I know certainly me, my favorite thing to do is to be, if I can offer someone experience or insights, that makes me really happy. So I would just say, I know it's hard to ask a question. It's hard to make that phone call. It's hard to do it, but I think you have a lot of people who are waiting to hear from you, and it would really make us feel wonderful. So do it for us, if not for you.
I love that. And we do have one question in the chat that maybe we could briefly touch on, which is, how do you differentiate between a passion and a career, and how do they overlap?
I could say something. So I think one of the interesting things, somebody once told me that the thing that you find yourself naturally sort of doing most of your time, like what is it that occupies most of your time without you having to think about it, gives you an indication of where where your passion could lie. And I personally went through this journey where I never thought that I could make any sort of a career out of my writing, silly limericks and, essays and things like that as a child. And I just thought I got to walk the straight path, do an MBA, all of that. And I think I had a bit of a panic attack during my management exam. And I said, my body's telling me something. This is not for you. You're just not excited. It's the opposite. And so I said, okay, this is not it. Because the whole idea of doing, at least that the perception was you do an MBA and you get into the corporate world and you earn really well and the money's really good and stuff. And I said, well, the offshoot, the other side is that I have to then start from scratch, where my salary would be like, journalists never get paid well. That's one of the standing jokes with credit card companies. They don't offer us credit cards, but because we don't have enough money. But the point is that what are the things that you're willing to sacrifice to be able to pursue what you want? And that sacrifice could be many things. I've sacrificed a social life. I've sacrificed a personal life. The time when all my friends were getting married and all of that, I was just busy working, and I said, well, okay, that's the price you pay, but that's fine. I'm pretty happy with what I chose to do. And sometimes it's not that you always choose things, they just also happen to you. You just got to follow what your heart really says, and your body will guide you, in more ways than one. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. I love that as well. Just I think a common theme of this latest discussion has really been just navigating uncertainty, and I think that um, that's something that is encouraging to hear from us as we're in a point where I think we either feel very overwhelmed by how much uncertainty there is, or very overwhelmed by the need to plan. And I think that that comes across a lot when you're in high school or in college and trying to figure everything out as it's constantly shifting. So to hear your words of encouragement is definitely like a good compass to have as we guide ourselves. I'll be closing the breakout rooms in about 1 minute, so if anyone has any final thoughts to add, feel free to do so. And I will be compiling with Ellie a list of contact information and resources from all of our speakers to send to you all. So as mentioned, reaching out if you have any questions or further desire to just engage in those conversations would be wonderful as well. But yeah, with that, in our final minute, are there any final thoughts to share? Time for about one more question, if you all have any. I think one thing that I have is, how do you recommend finding a job or an internship for younger people? Because I know that many opportunities are geared towards young professionals, or especially people over 18, for those of us in high school. So how did you navigate that, or how do you give those opportunities as people who are now in your fields?
I would say, first, I would Google. If there's something that appeals to you, I'd Google, I'd see what kind of organizations come up. I'd find people that you know or you see doing that. And sometimes you can, tell what the opportunities are for high school students. There are more and more organizations I see forming, like Girl Up and others, that are geared to create opportunities for high school girls. So I would say reach out, and for internships, even if someone can't hire you now, ask if they'll meet with you, like I said before, and you'll be surprised. Maybe an internship just creates informally, even though there's not a formal program. So it does require some initiative, but I think just having that willingness to take a risk could possibly create something.
And use LinkedIn. I know that it's
Yes.
not,
yes.
I know that it's not, TikTok, but it'll be much more helpful professionally to you than TikTok, at least right now. So.
Sounds good. And with that in mind, definitely check out the LinkedIns that have been dropped into the chat from our amazing speakers. But with that, a huge thank you to all of you. I'm so grateful for your time and inspired by you all, and I will see you back in the main room.
Great to have everyone back here, and to our new participants, welcome. We're very excited to have you hear from this excellent set of speakers, and we hope you had a great time in Breakout Room B. So welcome to Breakout Room A. And we will just hop right in to make sure that we have time to answer questions. And please feel free, participants, at any point to drop questions in the chat, to unmute and ask a question. The participants here are excited to hear from you above anyone else. So yeah, we're very excited to hear everyone's perspectives. So starting off, we can go into this question. For the panelists, what do you like most about your career or job, and what are some of the challenges in your career or job? And I'll drop that in the chat as you are thinking about it as well. And if anyone would like to speak on it. Yeah, Dr. Wood.
All right. I guess at this stage of my life, I love the variety of my work. It wouldn't be for everybody, but I have no 2 days that are the same, because I've done so many things in education that I don't know what's going to come next. So now I'm an independent consultant. And no one day is like any other. I don't know who my next client is going to be. I don't know what my next assignment is going to be. I don't know where I'm going to travel next. It could be Beijing, it could be Washington, it could be the third floor of my house. I don't, and I don't know, like somebody will say, well, it's this assignment that you've done before, but we want it a little bit like this, or it's brand new, or we've got these international teachers and we'd love for you to talk to them about literacy or whatever. So I love that. It took me a long time to get there, and taking on some gigs that weren't really that great. And now I can spot those a mile away. So it's like taking on jobs that I really love and working with people that I love, but I had to sort of cull those out over many years. So I think I'm at a point now where I just do the things that I love. And so I'm fortunate. But anyway, so that's what I love. But I'm the kind of person who loves variety. So if we use like a restaurant analogy, there are some people who are pastry chefs and they do that and they're precise and they do incredibly beautiful, precise work. I'm more the person who runs around lifting all the lids on the pots and sniffing and making comments and enjoying the variety of that and the novelty. Okay, so it's good to know what your tendencies are and who you are and kind of what you like. So the things that I do would drive some other people crazy. And sometimes when people look at my CV or my resume, they're like, are you ADD? I'm like, well, no, I just like a lot of variety in my life. So people either love it or just like end up scratching their heads. So think about who you are and what you like and what keeps you motivated and excited. Do you like to go narrow and deep, or do you like a wide variety of experiences?
I think that's very important in that not everyone has the same interests in how their career is shaped, and you have to follow what you like. Definitely. Yes, I think one of the speakers has raised. Go ahead, Anupama. Looks like you raised your hand.
Hi. So speaking about what I love most about my job. So I have, because I've been in this field for a really long time, when I stepped off the corporate ladder and I was doing really well, it took me a while to sort of come to terms with the fact that I no longer have that power and I no longer have that regularity of income, because those are also, so we have to weigh what we want in life, right? But I wanted really to experience what it's like to be a free spirit with not having to clock in every day and to have, this entire very hierarchical structure to how you work. And so when I moved away, while it took me, so I decided to do a course with Harvard. I actually studied a little more. For a while, I produced a documentary, and then gradually I found my way. And today I am the impact producer for a documentary film, which requires me to basically, what that means is, so it's like a documentary film about corals, which means marine conservation. And so the whole idea is to take the message from the movie and take it beyond that. So today we've actually published a book for children. We've been able to start an art residency, which means that we've created an underwater sculpture for coral rehabilitation. So it just opens up your life into meeting different kinds of people who are doing something for the earth that we live on, for the society that we are part of, giving back in some way. And I think that is really important for anyone who gets into a career, is that while there are lots of choices that one has to make, whatever you decide to do in life, remember that at some point in time, it'll be great to give back. Now, whether it is as somebody who helps the children or the next generation that's going to come into the work stream, or whether it is just at a larger scale in terms of infrastructure and the earth and the environment and all of that. So that's really a little bit of what I love and what the challenges have been.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I think it's important to understand that sometimes passion over power is a good route to follow, and then following your passion will empower you and empower others as well in the process. All right, would any other speakers like to touch upon this question? Or we could move on to the next one as well. All right, great. So here's an interesting one that we'd love to hear on. If you could give your younger self advice before embarking into your college or career journey, what would you tell her? Yes, Ms. Chavez.
I would tell myself that just be flexible. Just go with the flow. Sometimes you want something and you have to fight for it, and you will need to put all your energy. But I had a boss that always told me, like, you can't win all the battles, so you have to choose the right ones. So which is the battle that you want to fight, and that's the fight that you will need all your energy to go to. So sometimes in your career you will need to accept certain challenges or certain positions that maybe are not something that you wanted or that you are very excited about. But usually those experiences leave you a lot of knowledge and skills that will help you through your journey. So I would say take advantage of everything that's coming, enjoy the ride, and be flexible with it, and just accept that there are certain things that you will have, certain things that will take more time, and you will need more energy, but they will come. If you work hard for them, they will come.
That's definitely a great message of making sure you pick the battles that you're passionate about and don't feel like you have to tackle everything all at once.
Mhm.
Any other speakers like to speak on this? Yes, Ms. Mehta.
Yeah, I would say to my younger self that to be a little more self-confident, because I think when I started my journey, I guess I doubted myself at a lot of places. So the best thing is to kind of be a little more confident than what I was, and that would actually help you or help anyone make this journey a lot more smoother. And to if you want to be like a little more confident, I think the best way is to kind of just know more about your field, do your work, do your homework well, to be more
Right.
confident. And also so yeah, I think that's something that I would like to say. Probably there was one more thing. I just lost my train of thought. Yeah.
Oh, good. I think
Yeah,
confidence is definitely key, and that's something that Girl Up tries to instill in all the girls that it works with, so that we can push for progress.
Oh, yeah, I just recalled it. Yeah. So I always remember the saying that fake it till you make it. So definitely, yeah, even if you know that you don't have everything right now, but just keep doing your work in the background till you're successful or till you can make it.
And Miss Manloy, looks like you raise your hand, and then we'll go to Dr. Oyeye as well.
Actually, I think let her speak because I've been speaking quite a bit. So
yeah.
Dr. Oyeye.
So as a follow-on to the last speech, it's important to research what you are interested in, because oftentimes what happens is that people have these conversations in their heads and put barriers that are not there without even searching what the reality is. For example, someone who wants to go into software engineering, saying, I'm not going to go into software engineering because all my friends can code. They're talking about all the codes that they've done and all the coding. I don't know anything about that. Therefore, I'm not going to go into software engineering, not realizing that when you're in the program, you're going to learn. There's going to be a lot of opportunities. So sometimes we come up with these conversations and barriers that are unrealistic because we did not research to know what things are really about.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think there's sometimes those self-destructive barriers that we have to release before even tackling obstacles we know about. So definitely. And Anupama, I know you had raised your hand as well if you'd like to speak on this.
So simple stuff. Don't worry. Don't compare yourself with others because everyone has a different journey. And it's really so futile and it pulls you down. So don't ever do that. At least try not to, because it's easier said than done. The other thing is have fun, have lots of fun, because you're young only once.
Yeah.
The time when you can really experiment. It's the time when you can really give your all to everything. Experience everything that life offers you, because like I said, you only live once and you're young only once. And the last thing is be somebody who makes a difference. Even if it's in a really small way, make a difference, because that's what will set you apart at the end of the day. That's it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think those are key values that we often forget sometimes. Yeah, Dr. Wood.
I just want to build on your last point, which I think is the most profound, which is that you work hard, as others have said, learn your craft, learn everything about your field, hang out with people who know a lot more than you do and are a lot more experienced, and learn from them and make them be your mentor. Like, just be relentless and learn from them. But then there comes a point in your career when you can transition to put your own imprint on something, and your own originality and your own like superpower on, your own stamp on something, and you can soar after you've done this groundwork, and that's the moment. And we see this in artists all the time. We see when Picasso was, his father was an art teacher, and we see him learn how to do the basics, but then we see when he soars, and when Ray Charles sounded like everybody else in rock and roll, and then he soared. And when the Beatles, imitated Little Richard and others who were out there in rock and roll, and then they did their own thing. I mean, it's a trajectory that so many people go through, and you will too. And there'll be a point where you kind of have to do what's been done before to learn the ropes, but then look for that moment when you can soar and put your own mark in the world and make your own original contribution. And that's when it gets really exciting, and when you can contribute to the world in your own unique way. And can't wait to see what that will be for you.
Thank you for that. And for all of your contributions. I'm sure all that the participants are taking in will help them eventually get to that point where they can soar for themselves as well. So thank you. And it looks like we have about 3 to 4 minutes left. So at this time, if there is any participant that would like to ask a question, I'm sure the speakers would love to answer it. So feel free to unmute and ask, or write it in the chat. But we would love to hear from you as well. Yeah, Anna, go for it.
This isn't sort of like a question, it's more of a comment on the subject of like software engineering and like not going into it because of like all like your friends coding. And that's actually like really consider myself like an engineer of any sort, because a lot of people who I go to school with kind of like they like talk about it, and I really have not only just like the interest but like the experience. So I think like having that in mind in the future of being like if people around me are talking about something that I'm interested in but I don't have a lot of experience, like not to let that like hold me back. So that's definitely one thing that I'm gonna take away from this panel today.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing that. Molly, yeah, go ahead.
Dr. Wood, I love what you just said about like building the foundation and then, knowing when it's your time to be original again. My question, I believe, is for Ms. Chavez. I don't know who else this might apply to, but I am really interested in working outside of my home country. And I guess my question is, like, how has your transition been when you move jobs, and like what is it like socially, culturally, for leaving your family behind to pursue your career? Because, and I know that's kind of a personal question, so it's okay if you want to be vague, but like I'm really interested in following this career path and seeing where the world takes me, but there's definitely some obstacles there. So just wonder if you have any advice for that.
Sure. Thank you for the question. I think, well, let me talk about the personal thing and then the professional thing. So the personal thing, it's quite challenging to make the decision to say, yeah, I'm going to move there and I'm going to be alone. And probably I won't know anyone because I don't know anyone right now. And I will have to understand the culture and everything. I'm struggling right now with the trains, for example. So I mean, it's hard. It's really hard. I'm not gonna lie, and I don't want to sugar candy that. It takes a lot of time, and from my side, I don't know if anyone had that experience, but it takes a lot of courage to say, yeah, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna move, and it's because of my career, and it's something that is good for me, and it's something that will make me develop a lot of skills that I don't have right now, personally and professionally. So I think the best advice that I could tell you personally will be take your time to make the right decision, and decide where you want to be. Understand what are the obstacles that you might find. For example, I don't speak the language, so that's a big obstacle, but it's manageable. Again, you can manage and you can do it. It's just a matter of patience, and sometimes you will feel that you want to destroy something because you're so stressed and frustrated, but you will be able to do it. And professionally, what I will tell you is tell your boss what you want, tell the company what you want. If you want to move, you have to say it, and it will take time. It will take a year, 2 years, 3 years, but across my career, I have seen a lot of people doing it and saying, I want to live there, and that's my dream, and that's what I'm going to do. And they invested 2, 3 years, and they are there, and they are happy, and they are doing what they want. So it's just a matter of saying, I want this, understanding what are the things that you have to work. Maybe it's a thing of language, maybe it's some leadership skills or demonstrated, and you will be able to adapt, because that's the main thing here. You have to adapt because you are going to a new country, and it's not that the country will change because of you. You will have to adapt and not change the things that are important for you, because that's your values and that's something that won't be touched. But at least you will have to say, yeah, I have to adapt to the food, I have to adapt to the culture, I have to adapt to the way of working. So I would say that professionally, just raise your hand, say what you want, work for it. For sure, it will require for you to be really good at what you're doing. You will have to stand out from the rest of the people, but it's something that is doable, and it's something that if you want it, I'm sure that it will come. It's just patience and work.
Thank you for that. And Dr. Oyeye, it looks like you also have a wrapping up thought. We'll close the breakout rooms in about 2 minutes, but please share.
Okay, so I haven't moved around a bit. What I find is at the end of the day, your immediate environment, the support around you, your co-workers, the friends you make, is ultimately what makes the difference. But the advice I would give to anyone who is moving to another country is to do your research, because research in terms of the immigration needs, the research in terms of why you are moving, and research in terms of if you're moving, you're in a profession where there are licensing requirements, for example, you want to make sure that it's best meeting all those requirements, if possible, before you move. So I suppose what I'm saying, that the more of your paperwork you've done before you move, the easier the transition, because then you can then focus on the social aspect, making friends and integrating into your work. But if you are focused on things like, how am I going to get my immigration papers, whereas if I'm out of job, I'm not, that means I'm out of immigration status, for example. But if maybe there was opportunity to move as a permanent resident or a green card holder to a place, it's best to go in that direction, because then all those extra things are not there to worry about. You just worry about making friends and settling into your work.
Thank you so much for that. And yeah, I think that it's definitely very interesting to move to a new a new location for a job and pursue the passions, but it's important to keep those in mind. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you to all of you, Ms. Manloy, Dr. Wood, Ms. Mehta, Ms. Chavez, and Dr. Grant Oyeye. It's been a pleasure hearing from all of you. And we are wrapping up the breakout room soon, but I know the participants and I have gained a lot out of hearing from your experiences. And again, we will definitely send out a recap email from this event. Within that recap email, there will be ways for outreach and for communication with all the speakers. So if you'd like to continue communication, they're all here to support you and are very valuable mentors. So again, thank you. And we look forward to seeing you back in the main room.
I do want to thank you all for coming and just mention, as I'm sure Ellie just did, that there will be speaker outreach information being sent out to all of you very soon. So if there's a question you didn't get a chance to ask, just know that you will be able to ask it, and our speakers have all been incredibly generous in providing their websites and LinkedIns and contact information. So be sure to check those out and reach out and get those questions answered and just create those connections. We hope that this event will sort of have a butterfly effect and to continue to bring you all together and bring you opportunities and inspiration. And also just a huge thank you to all of our wonderful panelists for taking the time out of their morning or afternoon or evening, wherever they are in the world. They've navigated time differences and many, many emails from us in planning this, and they all are very generous with their time. So a huge thank you to them for their advice. And their dedication. And lastly, to Dr. Archibald, who also was on the receiving end of at least 24 emails from our end with questions and resources and links and everything. Thank you for reaching out to us and including us in this and giving us the chance to connect with such wonderful people. And we're very grateful to you as well.
Here's to our organizers, bring us all together, really. All your hard work.
Thank you so much. It's our pleasure. And it's been so inspiring to hear from all of you. And as all the speakers are saying in the chat, as they're dropping their information, they love to hear from you. And we really hope that this Global Career Forum starts a bit of a mentorship-mentee relationship. So we would love for you all to connect, to continue conversation beyond the Zoom. And we look forward to keeping this up and continuing to create these connections. That's what Girl Up is all about. That's what the Harvard Alumni Network is all about. So we look forward to empowering our fellow sisters. And we thank you all for coming here today. We apologize that we went a little bit over time. And yeah, just a big thank you to everyone. It was a very inspiring hour and a half.
Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Bye-bye. You too.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Really appreciate everybody's time and inspiration. So thank you so much.